Hallo und herzlich willkommen beim Globe23, dem Leipziger Wissenschaftsfestival, organisiert vom Research Center Global Dynamics und ausgerichtet hier von der Uni Leipzig. Unser Motto dieses Jahr ist Leben im Umbruch. Wir hatten gestern schon eine spannende Auftaktveranstaltung. Da war unter anderem die sächsische Staatsministerin dabei, die Staatsministerin der Justiz für Europa, Demokratie und Gleichstellung, Katja Mayer. Und gerade eben hatten wir hier einen interessanten Book-Talk zum Thema, wie die Digitalisierung die Diplomatie verändert. Einen großen Umbruch erleben auch all die Länder, die von Brain Drain betroffen sind. Brain Drain, das ist, wenn hochqualifizierte Arbeitskräfte ihr Land verlassen, um im Ausland Arbeit zu suchen. Ein Land, in dem junge, gut ausgebildete Arbeitskräfte vor großen wirtschaftlichen Herausforderungen stehen, ist Tunesien. Und was sich dort ändern müsste, darüber diskutieren wir hier jetzt beim Globe Forum. Ein wichtiger Hinweis, die Veranstaltung wird auf Englisch sein. So I will switch to English now as well, and I would like to welcome our guests and hosts here on stage, Enrica Audano and Wyatt Constantine, and they are both from the Access research team. And I would also like to welcome on stage the PhD students, Thouraya Garraoui, Nasser Moslem, and Emna Saidi.
Okay, well, I'm going to give a very brief, small introduction because this is principally supposed to be a discussion with our PhDs, but thanks everybody for taking part in this little intimate meeting of ours. It's quite nice. As our moderator mentioned, me and Ika worked together on a project funded through the DAAD called Access, a rather lengthy name, the African Center for Career Enhancement and Skill Support, but principally the research question that it revolves around is really prescient, and this is the issue of education and unemployment and the seeming paradox that as educational opportunities, especially tertiary educational opportunities in the global south have expanded and more graduates enter the labor force, there are only more unemployed. And so this is sort of a critical juncture because this is sort of a betrayal of sort of the liberal development narrative that we've told ourselves over decades, which is that, you know, simply by investing in human capital and education, the unemployment question will sort of work itself out as a result, and this really hasn't happened. So I think this question sits at a juncture with really prescient political questions about migration. It sits at prescient questions about the future of labor migration into Europe. But I think the other side of that is that we often ignore the perspectives of, you know, the young people who have been promised, you know, a better future through their education, have been promised more opportunities, and the crushing sort of disappointments and challenges presents when they don't materialize. You know, so we have huge percentages of the population on the move globally. We have huge percentages of the populations unable to find opportunities that they imagined. That's what we focus on. I would say this is our main research question, and I think the rest of our team here has more knowledge on Tunisia than I do, so I'll give it to them.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Wyatt. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm very glad to have the chance of a public debate with our colleagues, our Tunisian researchers. I'm just introduce you before giving you the word. First of all, we are going to have a small presentation of 15 minutes each. This was what we were proposing as format, and then the chance of a public, open discussion. So we will have a contribution, first of all, by Emna Saidi from the University of Tunis, who has been working for almost 2 years now here at Access at the University of Leipzig on a research project on the recruitment behavior of industrial enterprises in Tunisia. So this is what she will focus on. Then we will have a contribution by our colleague who's gonna submit her PhD thesis very soon, Thouraya Garraoui, who's working exactly on the main question of graduate unemployment in Tunisia. And then we will focus on a bit more specific context, agricultural context, a context of rural environment in Tunisia with Nasser Moslem, who will talk with us about the social and the solidarity economy as a potential answer to agricultural unemployment in Tunisia. Thank you for being here, and I will leave you the word. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here, and thank you, Ika and Wyatt, for the presentation. As Ika said, I'm Emna. I'm a PhD student at Leipzig University, and I'm working on the recruitment practices in Tunisian industrial enterprises. To make it more clear, my question would be about who gets the job and why. Also, I try to compare the different practices between the different sectors in the industrial Tunisian enterprises. But today I will talk about one of the main paradoxes in the Tunisian labor market. I guess many of you know that the unemployment rate in Tunisia is high, extremely high, I would say. It is around 16% during this period. But paradoxically, when I did my field work a few months ago in Tunisian industrial enterprises, I was surprised by the fact that those enterprises have difficulties to find workers. And the problem does not only concern high-skilled workers, it also concerns low-skilled and unskilled workers. So I'll try to explain the reasons behind this problem, behind this mismatch, even though it is a very complicated issue to be explained in a few minutes, but I'll do my best. One of the main reasons that in many cases unemployment is rather a personal choice than an involuntary circumstance. It seems intriguing, but I'll try to explain again. So sometimes candidates can decline a job offer because the proposed salary is low, even if they don't have any previous experience in the labor market before. So this behavior can be explained by two main reasons. The first one, they might have alternative job options available that offer better salary or align more closely with their career goals, making this decision acceptable and understandable. But second, some individuals may prefer unemployment over accepting a low-paying job. In such cases, the influence of family and culture is crucial. Parents, Tunisian parents, particularly in middle or high-class families, may advise their children not to accept the low-paying positions, believing that it's in their best interest to wait for a better opportunity. They may even provide financial support until their children secure more suitable employment. So I need to specify that this case concerns especially high-class to middle-class families. Of course, this scenario is there is another scenario for those who belong to a poor-class family. One of the other reasons behind the decision not to work or not to accept a job in the industrial sector is poor working conditions, which are generally linked to the nature of the job itself. So candidates may prefer administrative roles over production or technical positions, except for engineers, of course. For example, machine setter, machine operator, logisticians, those positions are in high demand, but so challenging for industrial enterprises to fill. Finding low-skilled or unskilled workers is even more difficult, especially in the textile sector, where non-graduates prefer to work in cafes or restaurants rather than in factories. This decision may also be influenced by how valuable, how prestigious your job is perceived in the eyes of society. Since working in factories is always less valuable, less prestigious than working in other sectors like touristic sector or service sector. Last but not least, brain drain. Brain drain is one of the main reasons behind low retention in enterprises. So employees in the Tunisian industrial sector quit their jobs because they found a work abroad. In this case, the brain drain is not the result of unemployment, but rather of finding a better professional career. Although that's not always the case. You'd be surprised to know that some human resource responsible have managed employees leaving their engineering position to work as technicians in countries like France, Germany, or any other European country. So here, the migration decision is not always based on financial reasons or career opportunities or even unemployment. Sometimes it is about freedom of movement and just being curious about what the Western world has to offer. So in this case, finding a job abroad becomes just a way to make the process of moving a bit easier, which, let's be honest, can be quite complicated. All those procedures to have a visa are way so complicated to those who are in Tunisia, for example, to go abroad. So I need to specify that those are the results of a field work I did a few months ago, as I said in the beginning, and it concerns Greater Tunis. So those facts may change in rural zones or outside the city center of the country. Thank you so much for your attention, and that's it.
Okay. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you, Emna, for starting the discussion. My name is Thouraya Garraoui. I am a PhD student at Leipzig University. And I would like to say or to contribute a bit today to the linkages already that I discovered a bit between the question of brain drain and graduate unemployment. When discussing brain drain as a topic, it is fundamental to talk about graduate unemployment. As brain drain means, in some part of it, a migration of skilled people or graduates from the south countries to the north countries, and in this sense, the situation of unemployment that these graduates are facing in their homelands can push them in a manner or the other to migrate in order to look for better employment condition or aspiration. And if we think in this linkage, we can see that Tunisia could be one of the best case studies to discuss this relationship. Tunisia scored in 2020 28% as unemployed graduate rate. So 28% of the unemployed people in Tunisia are from the graduates. And this is a bit shocking because we have too many graduates, and at the same time, they could not be employed. And if we have a look also at the figures and the statistics of the number, and as my colleague was just saying, the number of the skilled people, Tunisian skilled people who are migrating from a year to another to Europe, since the 90s, after the 2011 revolution, and mainly after 2020, because of the hard impacts of COVID-19 that led to the deterioration of the economy and, let's say, the amplification of the financial crisis or troubles, pushing many graduates and skilled people to migrate from Tunisia to Europe. And here the question is why? My colleague Emna just tried to give a response to this from her perspective. I would give another one with saying that many of the graduates or the skilled people who moved from Tunisia to work in Europe, their employment ambitions could not be satisfied in Tunisia. They have their own employment aspiration, And unfortunately, it is not matched with the reality of the labor market in Tunisia. And to specify this, I would share with you just a result that I get from my empirical work that I did in July, between July and October 2021. And I asked just a simple question to the graduates, 360 young graduates living in Greater Tunis. And I would say 2 words about Greater Tunis. Greater Tunis is the first concentration of economy in Tunisia. So the chances of the graduates living in Greater Tunis in getting or reaching a good job could be more superior than the others living in other regions. So I just asked the graduates that I interviewed, what are your job ambitions? In which sector you prefer to work? I gave them 4 options. The first is working in the public sector. The second is working in the private sector. The third, to launch their own business, to be an entrepreneur. And the last is just accepting any job without thinking of its background. The responses were unequal, but more than 60% of the graduates that I interviewed prefer to work at the public sector. Almost 20% prefer to work to be entrepreneurs, less than 10% to work in the private sector, and almost 10% to accept any job without thinking of it. Here, the results are a bit surprising. If the Tunisians graduates want to work in the private sector, could this be satisfied in Tunisian labor market? Simply no. Because Tunisia, and since adopting the structural adjustment program in the 90s, stopped producing jobs at the public sector. Simply, when adopting this structural restriction, they started encouraging the private sector and announcing the decline of the state, so the state is not getting any responsibility in producing more jobs in the public sector. Here, more than 13 years after these reforms, and the Tunisian graduates are still attached to the jobs in the public sector. And if we ask why, simply because the public sector is the only sector producing or giving the chance to work in a decent job, to be in a secure situation, to have, let's say, stable earnings, to benefit from health insurance, and so on. The second option, or the second rank, we have the entrepreneurship. Many of the graduates in Tunisia want to be entrepreneurs, but could this be satisfied? I said, no, unfortunately, because entrepreneurship path is also blocked in Tunisia with a lot of troubles. We know about the deterioration of the economy in Tunisia after the 2011 revolution. We know about the financial troubles. We know about how the social situation is unstable. We know about the reforms at the political level, and mainly the heart of the bureaucracy in Tunisia. So again, the path of the entrepreneurship, which the graduates choose in their second option, is blocked. So we move to the third option, which is the private sector. And many of the graduates just reject this option because of, let's say, the quality of the jobs already offered in the private sector. And despite that it was chosen from the state since the 90s to guide the Tunisian economy and to produce enough jobs for the graduates, it is not until now strong enough to produce or to create enough jobs in quantity and in quality that could satisfy the graduates' ambitions. The private sector in Tunisia is still producing few jobs compared to the high number of the graduates, job seeker, and at the same time, the quality of the jobs provided by the private sector is from the low quality. It is marked with, let's say, worse working conditions, long hours, in many times without even a contract. It is just an oral agreement with low wages. Sometimes the graduates are exposed to discrimination, to exploitation. I think that I would agree with what Emna said. Sometimes a graduate would prefer staying unemployed rather than working in bad conditions in the private sector. So this is what I get from the fieldwork. I have 4 options, and the job at the public sector in the first rank, then the entrepreneurship, then the private, and accepting anything. Guess what? I discovered that they gave me another option, which is the informal sector. this is one of the findings of my fieldwork, that the informal sector, is that the informal sector is the new sector attracting more and more graduates. So graduates within this, let's say after 2011 and mainly after 2020, started working more in the informal sector, and this could explain in particular manners the explosion of the informal sector in Tunisia. So here, let's just imagine a graduate within this situation. He's a job seeker. He's transitioning or crossing the transitional period between the university and the labor market, and he is in front of, let's say, 4 options: work in the public sector, but it is blocked; being entrepreneurship, it is but it is blocked, and he has to choose between working in the private sector or in the informal sector. And here, he will prefer working in the informal sector, because if the private and the informal are both giving the same low quality of jobs, with the informal sector, he will earn more money, because it is undeclared section. And I would go back a bit for the question of brain drain, and let's imagine if I gave these interviewees another option with the migration, and what would the response looks like. I think they will put the migration in the first rank with a large share, then even the public sector, then we will find the informal sector, and last, the private sector will be their last option of employment. So in this situation, when their aspiration are not, employment aspiration could not be satisfied in Tunisia, they would prefer migration as a solution for better employment conditions.
Thank you very much, Thouraya, for your contribution. I will hand it over directly to you, Nasser.
My name is Nasser Moslem. I'm from the northwest of the country, the other side of the country. I'm coming from geographical background. My master and my dissertation in Tunisia was about the water governance and the agriculture systems in the northwest of the country, and now I'm in my second year in PhD in Leipzig University, and the heading of my PhD is the employment of Tunisian graduates, the social and solidarity economy as an opportunity for rural agricultural development in the northwest of the country. So I think that the idea of development in Tunisia is a central one, to ensure the needs of society by building strong economies, and has been many decades during which exchanges between liberal and socialist regimes. After the revolution of January 2011, and with the new local governance frameworks, new contexts emerged, the most important of which were civil society networks, which over the years have helped support the state's development efforts to reduce disparities between inland and coastal regions, north and south. On the other hand, the Tunisian education system has produced an abundance of university graduates and created an acute contradiction between the training aspects and the needs of the labor market. And this issue intensifies as we move from urban to rural areas, where education represents a veritable elevator. So in my dissertation, I'm looking to find the link between the system education in Tunisia and the social and solidarity economy as an opportunity for integration, cohesion, and development. So, and to understand the phenomenon of social and solidarity economy in Tunisia, we need to understand the first experience in revolutionary period, post-revolutionary period in Tunisia. It was Jemna experience in the southwest of the country. Jemna, a small village in the southwest of Tunisia, has become a symbol of resilience and empowerment through its transformative experience in the field of social and solidarity economy. Jemna's journey began in the aftermath of the Tunisian revolution in 2011, as the country transitioned into a democracy. It also saw the emergence of a new wave of grassroots movements seeking to address socio-economic inequalities. In this regard, the Association for the Protection of Oases of Jemna was formed with the aim of reclaiming the community's collective land and fostering the subsistence and inclusive economic model. Jemna's oasis lands were exploited and monopolized by a few wealthy individuals. This created a deep socio-economic divide, leaving many villagers impoverished and marginalized. However, the Association for the Protection of Oasis Jemna challenged this unjust system and worked tirelessly to reclaim communal land for the benefit of the entire community, the people of Jemna village. Through a series of negotiations and legal battles, Jemna regained control of more than 1,000 hectares of oasis land in 2016. This marked a turning point in the village's history, as it not only regained its cultural and environmental heritage, but also laid the foundations for a transformative social and solidarity economy. Jemna's social and solidarity economy model is centered around the production and sale of high-quality dates. The community collectively manages the oasis, ensuring sustainable agricultural practices and equitable distribution of resources. The profits generated from the sale of dates are reinvested in the village, financing various development projects such as education, healthcare, and infrastructure. Moreover, Jemna's experience has gained international recognition, serving as an inspiration for other marginalized communities facing similar challenges. But in November and in December 2016, the head of the state in Tunisia made the smart move, and they established a new law of social and solidarity economy to contain the movements and the strike inside the country. So this law provides a legal framework to support and to promote social and solidarity economy initiatives in the country. And this law defines social and solidarity economy as economic activities carried out by cooperatives, mutual societies, associations, and NGOs that prioritize human development, social justice, and environmental sustainability. And this law aims to promote social and solidarity economy as a means to reduce poverty, unemployment, and social exclusion. It aims to support initiatives that provide decent work, foster local development, and to contribute to sustainable development. The governmental and the private institution will give formations and governance to establish social and solidarity economy, entities, cooperative, NGOs, and the mutual societies, and the GDS, the Agricultural Development Group, inside the country, registration, management, decision-making processes, and financial accountability. Also, the financial support and the promotion, technical assistance, capacity building, networking opportunities, and market access to social and solidarity economy. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Nasser.
You're welcome.
First of all, I would like to to give some numbers, just two, but I think numbers do explain sometimes or visualize better phenomena. So we are talking about 11 millions or almost 12 millions inhabitants in Tunisia, and I was reading that almost 2 millions are living abroad, working in Europe, but not just in Europe. I was recently reading about new developments or new trajectories of migration towards sub-Saharan Africa, which I think it's very interesting. But we are talking about a large part of the population, of the Tunisian population, going abroad, looking for better living and working conditions. And talking about Germany, we are still talking about very small numbers. So I was reading that Germany gave something like 5,500 working permits 2021. So it's not a lot if you talk about 82 millions.
84.
Maybe 84 millions. So just to have a broader picture, going back to the question of solidarity economy, I was just wondering, I think it's a very interesting example you were mentioning, the one of Emna. I was going to ask you, which role does the international cooperation play in all of that? I know that there are a lot of internationally funded projects for solidarity economy. I just would like to ask you to explain a bit which role does it play?
Yeah, actually in Tunisia, when we talk about the civil society in Tunisia, we talk about a triangle. And in this triangle, we will find the state in the head, and we will find the national civil society, and we will find the third part, or the third actor is the NGOs, international NGOs. And I think that the role of NGOs in Tunisia is very important, especially in this international and national economic crisis. Let's take a program in the southern of Siliana. It's my region. So there is a program, economic program, called Profits, and this program created by the Ministry of Agriculture in Tunisia and the IFAD, the International Fund of Agriculture Development. So I think that this program creates more than 600 jobs and 720 small projects for poor families, and more than 84 SMEs, small and medium enterprise, in the southern of Siliana. So I think that the role of NGOs in Tunisia, especially in this period, is very important.
Thank you, Nasser. Please, yes.
Thank you very much for your presentations. They were really interesting, and you're all very charismatic speakers, so thank you. I wanted to ask a question that I will address to Nasser, but it's really it could be for everyone. Yeah. So Nasser, you talked about how after 2011, in the Jasmine Revolution, there was an opening for civil society actors and opportunities, and this is part of what led to the, I guess, the flourishing of Jemna and the situation there. Have you been able to see in your research if this has changed or been impacted by the sort of democratic reversal that has happened in the last year with the coup with Kais Saied, who's basically taken all power? And I'm not sure, what will that do to civil society stakeholders, in your opinion? And of course, I think this is something that could really be relevant for everybody in terms of how does it impact these economic factors you've been talking about. So. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Actually, I think that the civil society now in Tunisia faced a lot of challenges, especially in this period of Kais Saied. But about the social and solidarity economy is my specialty, and I spent more than 7 years in Tunisia as activist inside the country. I think that Qais Said kept the law of the social and solidarity economy just to change the old institutions by new institutions called Sharikat al-Ahliya, something like that. Yeah, it's like populism, yeah. He kept the same institutions of social and solidarity economy, the same law, just he changed institutions, the old institution by a new one called in Arabic Sharikat al-Ahliya, charity organizations or associations. And as you know, in Tunisia we have more than 25,000 association, organization, and agricultural development groups. There is a lot of projects between NGOs and national institutions in Tunisia, governmental or private.
Thank you. Any other question, comment, remark?
I saw this, I guess, several months ago now, and it still is stuck in my head. Najla Boudin, she's since gone into retirement. But she made a speech earlier in January in 2023 at the World Economic Forum after this sham of an election where I think 10% of the population voted, and then she went to the World Economic Forum and was discussing her sort of grand development narrative for Tunisia against this shameful backdrop. It was really embarrassing. Like, she wouldn't take questions from reporters in the audience. It was kind of scandalous, but she kind of gave this very like Davos-friendly speech about unleashing the power of the entrepreneur and of you know, empowering the youth and women, kind of like standard Davos fare that you would think. But since that, I was really kind of curious. Do you, within Tunisia, see like a change in sort of not only development narrative, but like the role of the state? Because again, we can only surmise from outside what's actually happening, but is this like this entrepreneurial turn something that was just sort of used in the context of impressing international donors, or is this kind of something actively pursued by the Tunisian state?
Let's just compare between what is official and what is already happening in the real world, in the labor market, in Tunisian labor market. And it is opening the same discussion of the public sector. It looks like Tunisians, and after more than 13 years, are not convinced by the socio-economic and political change that already happened. If the country announced that the state is not producing jobs anymore, and you have to look at the private sector or entrepreneurship, or I don't know, another options. But the people, let's say the graduates and their family, let's say the society, Tunisian society is still attached to the public sector. I'm not saying that they are right or they are wrong. But if the state is saying all the time, I don't have more jobs in the public sector, let's just focus on the entrepreneurship, for example, or let's just focus on the private sector. Let's transform ourselves from, let's say, a consumer, something like consumer country into a productive country, and let's build our projects based on the skills and the abilities of the graduates. I can say that this looks like a logic. It's okay. But the reality of the labor market is that the state is trying to push as much as it can the graduates into launching their own businesses. However, it cannot deal with the whole parts of the Tunisian society, which means mainly, let's say, the big businessmen who are already ruling the whole of the country affairs. If the state is pushing the graduate to launch their own businesses, and when they try, they will be blocked by the hard bureaucracy or by the financial troubles, etc. And this bureaucracy and high financial troubles, let's say, it is imposed by the old elites, let's say, between two brackets, corruptors. They are big businessmen, they are dominating the whole private sector, and they are trying, let's say, to underestimate the state efforts and marginalize the efforts of the graduates. If Nasser, for example, is a young graduate, he has his own money and he wants to launch his own business, if he will not use, let's say, illicit methods to establish his own business, he will be just rejected. And even if the state is supporting him, giving him the opportunity, he will be rejected. And this, let's say, it's just simply like that. These people are in some ways more stronger even than the state power. And this is the problem, because they are, let's say, integrated in the large network of capitalism in the world, and they are supported enough to be a leader even more than the state. So Nasser just talked about the experience, and I think Wyatt also talked about supporting entrepreneurship and in how far could this be helpful in resolving the economic troubles or problems in Tunisia. And it could be, okay, but the state could not just go to the war herself, just the state, to combat these people without the responsibility of the society, who must support and try just to take part of the war. Let's say just it's a war, and in Tunisia we are calling it a war against corruption. That started since 2011, but until now corruptors are still dominating the private sector, are still ruling the country, and even the state is changing the laws, even if the state is supporting graduates, giving more opportunity. Doing anything, it will not be effective enough because it is not more powerful than these people. That's it.
Okay, I'll try to be more optimistic here. So actually, there is an effort from the government to encourage graduates to open their own business. And it's not just an effort from the government. It is also a changing of the mindset of graduates. So if we will talk numbers again, the number of startups is increasing lately in Tunisia, which is a good indice, I would say, especially in the technological sector, development, programmation. I mean, the human capital is here, and there are some efforts. Still, those financial problems, administrative problems, and the whole story to open a business and how difficult it is, I'm totally agree with you. But there is, I would say, an effort from the government to encourage graduates for opening, for entrepreneurship in general. Yeah.
Thank you, Thouraya. Thank you, Emna, for your explanations and contributions. So if you have any further question, we do have the time for, yeah, please.
Thank you so much for all of your presentations. It was very interesting. I want to ask about your constructive ideas that you have how to prevent further brain drain. I mean, you talked about some, but maybe there are ideas that you have. Do you have any examples of maybe a company who is, or an entrepreneur who is doing it different and who has good jobs in the private sector, which people like, and if there would be, or if there are any constructive ideas how to prevent further brain drain? Because you discussed the problems, but I want to know if there are solutions that you see, or companies who do it. I hope I could make it clear. I know it's complex, but maybe you have examples.
Okay, I'll try to clarify that there are very how to say modern enterprises in Tunisia, but they're generally offshore enterprises. So where you can find a good work conditions, a good salary, but those enterprises are a canal to brain drain. So generally, graduates start there, build a good experience, and depending on their experience, they go abroad. And those offshore enterprises are like an intermediate between the graduates and going abroad in another filial of the enterprise itself. Solution for brain drain, I mean, the problem is very, very big. It is a social problem, also an economic problem. So it would be one of the best solutions is to work on the economic side in the country, like ameliorating the economic situation of the country. It is easy to talk about it, but so hard in practice. It needs it needs like a very political, how to say? Yeah, a very good political decision and the education system should be somehow also intervene in this and change the way of doing. So I don't know if those can be solutions. It is so general because the question is like a very big question. Yeah.
But you mentioned this a little bit, Thouraya, and maybe you can give some more specific country context. But I think this is you know, for a lot of countries, you know, like you know, Iraq or Tunisia, you know, these were, you know, sophisticated, relatively sophisticated economies that were sort of built on sort of legacies of state socialism. And you know, I just kind of use Iraq as like a similar example. But you know, like when the U.S. came in and totally demolished the Ba'athist state, you know, they realized that they had really underestimated the complexity and breadth and the capability of the state economy, and Iraq has really never recovered since. And Tunisia hasn't undergone this sort of war, but I think in the 90s, when, as part of getting IMF funding, most of these countries basically had to gut their civil sectors and public sectors. So they had to sell off state industries, they had to privatize state industries, they had to slash the public sector payrolls, and I don't think, and Tunisia is not alone in this, but I don't think they've really ever recovered. So I think the development discourse since the 90s has been, well, there's no more state, so just create your own job, just entrepreneur yourself out of poverty. But saying this to countries that are sort of cut out of global capital markets, that pay an outrageous premium to borrow, like, I mean, we have one Ghanaian in the audience in the back who can probably tell us, like, the Ghanaian parliament has to pay sort of like half of its revenue on any given year servicing dollar-denominated debt. And I don't think the case in Tunisia is that dramatic, but I think it is a little bit disingenuous to sort of like push the entrepreneurial narrative into contexts where it's simply not going to happen, you know? I mean, that might sound like a little bit grim, but I don't see it, and I don't think we should also underplay that, you know, the state socialist era was not, I mean, a lot of good was produced in that time, you know.
I would just say 2 words to Wyatt. I think it can happen, and if each part and each actor in the Tunisian country took his own responsibility. We cannot just launch the majority of the responsibility on the state and just stay waiting. We have to do our responsibilities as graduates, or as simple people, citizens. As if every person or Tunisian person took his own responsibility from inside the country or outside the country, we can do it. It's not like a magic. We can see that some African countries are doing that for the time being, and they are in a situation, let's say, worse than Tunisia, and they do it because each part of the scenario, or let's say each actor of the scene, is taking his own responsibility. It is not only the state, or only the graduate, or only the entrepreneur. If the state is taking a step into the other side, the society must, let's say, push on the behind of this, and not just try to cross the path of the state, as it is already happening in Tunisia. If someone coming from outside with money from his savings, or he's trying to launch his own business, and even if the state is not supporting him, let's say, too much, the society must support him. His family must support him. His neighborhood. I think it's a question of shared responsibility, and the same reply to the question you are raising about the brain drain. In how far and could we consider that the brain drain is, let's say, deteriorating or Tunisia, or just causing the migration of skilled people from Tunisia to Europe, or to, let's say, to the North countries. If we think that the brain drain is a shared responsibility, if the state is not doing enough, in how far could the graduates themselves, or the entrepreneurs themselves, or the private sector himself be able to take his own responsibility? When we see here in Germany, from the kids until the officials, every person is taking his responsibility. In the bus, in the streets, everywhere, they are taking their own responsibility, which is not happening in Tunisia or in the other, let's say, African or developing countries. So when thinking of the brain drain, could be enough advantages bringing enough benefits to Tunisia or problems to Tunisia, it is based on the position of the person. And if I am benefiting, let's say, it's okay, I'm in Germany. That's okay. Why would I think about what is already happening in Tunisia? So here I am a passive person. I'm not taking my own responsibility. But when I have to take my own responsibility, as Nasser, as Emna, as all the Tunisian people, the brain drain could be in a manner or another, somehow giving some good starting, for example, for people to go back, to earn skills here, to go back and to invest in Tunisia, for example, for other people, they are like, say, using their own savings to contribute in the Tunisian context with, because, for example, we will not need more than, let's say, 5,000 euro in Tunisia to open a small business. So it could be a bit a small business.
Doable with just 5,000.
Let's say 10, euros. 20. It's 20. Yeah. We can just collect this amount of money here in Germany, for example, or in France or somewhere, and then we can open a small business in Tunisia that could employ at least 2 or let's say 3 persons. So here it is a person taking his responsibility. Again, I think it's a question of responsibility, and each part or each actor from his position much do what he had to do, just simply like that.
How does the situation in the universities look like? Because I can imagine that there also the situation gets tougher and tougher, and is it even still attractive to start any sort of studies for the young people when there is such a big problem with the employment problem for graduates?
It depends in which field the university is. I mean, the University of Engineering, for example, or of medicine are so good, and the training there is like with very high standard. But when it comes to other fields like social sciences or economics, politics, and so on, I mean, the training is becoming less good, I would say, and also something is changing in the education system in Tunisia is the uprise of private universities. So. Which affects the level of graduates, I would say. I mean, it doesn't reflect reality 100%. So always the public sector is better for when it comes to engineering, medicine, and those fields, but in the private sector. Like it is better to do engineering in the public sector than in the private sector, and for the other field, I would say the private sector is better. So it is changing a lot. If I don't know if I answered your question.
Thank you. So my question is rather for Nasser Moslem, sorry.
because you were talking about the rural areas, and we haven't really talked about that a lot yet. I was wondering what kind of role are the graduates playing there? So you said that there was this state cultivation going on, so it's a project. Maybe you can explain it a bit more, and what does unemployment or employment mean in your example, what you've been working on?
I think the definition of unemployed graduates inside the country is the same in the greater Tunis or in the Sahel. But I think those projects of civil society are for the poor families, not for graduates. Inside the country, graduates go to the Sahel or to the greater Tunisia and looking for a job, or they choose to go in the north to Europe or to the Northern America. Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's a real question, but just going back to what you said about taking the personal responsibility, or I mean, kind of asking your generation or your mates about taking the responsibility, and I guess it means, or what you want to say, or that's I guess the question is maybe sometimes taking the not taking the better job maybe in Europe or somewhere, but maybe taking something where you earn less but you do something for your country. Is that what you wanted to say? I guess that's a bit the question, and I find it, I mean, it's a good thing to say, but I also connected to what you said, is also then the structure, right? Where like the old question of agency and structure also, of course, in the context where they're working. I mean, it's a good thing to say this, but I would say also I perfectly understand if people don't do that. Even more so being someone from Germany with very different conditions to grow up and to work in. So maybe you can say something more about that.
Okay, if a person or a graduate won't take his responsibility, he's free, but he has not to ask the state to produce a specific job for him in the public sector. It's simple. If you won't take your own responsibility and be adapted or adapted to the conditions here, look, you are a Tunisian, you are living in Tunisia. Tunisia is facing a lot of troubles from the national and the international level, and if you don't accept, you are free, but you cannot start doing strikes and demonstration every day in the front of the ministry and asking for a job. It's simple as it is. It's okay. You are not obliged to accept a worse working condition. It's okay. It's fine. But you can see next to you people who just launched small businesses. And as Emna said, there is a lot of examples. It's not, I said at the beginning that it is very complicated for the entrepreneurship path, but people launch their own businesses in the formal sector, and unfortunately, they are working in the informal sector, they are producing and they are helping. At least they are not giving money to the state because they are working in the undeclared sector, but they are giving opportunity to people to work. They are giving the opportunity to people to consume some Tunisian foods rather than supporting the importation from outside with the euro or with the dollar. So it could be, as I'm saying always, it is based on the position. If you cannot contribute at the larger level of the structures or at the larger level of the laws, you can start with the simple basics of the structure. If you cannot just help with changing a whole structure at the state, you can just start with your own family. You can contribute starting from your own family with consuming Tunisian products rather than consuming or looking for international market. I'm not thinking that Tunisia has to be isolated, but in a certain point and within facing a dramatic financial situation, you cannot ask more for importation if you have a small land and you don't exploit it. You can see here, Germans, everything is already available in the market, but they they help themselves with contributing within small productions. Some people are just the idea of garden. In Tunisia, we have a lot of lands, and it is desertified. People are leaving their lands, and we have many, let's say, not good marks, but it is acceptable marks of clothing, of food, of, I don't know, perfumes, etc. But they are looking for the importation from outside, and you are pushing the state to import with the dollars. However, the Tunisian, let's say, domestic activities are destroyed. And you can see today when tourists are coming from Europe, they are buying this domestic stuff from the Tunisian because it is handmade. So if Tunisians are not accepting to consume their own production and looking for international production, how it came to the image? We can see that even European people, or let's say touristic from different parts of the world, are consuming these products. However, Tunisians are just rejecting it and looking for international market imported with euro. So it's a kind of, I'm just saying, if you cannot contribute at the high level, you can start with the basic level, and you will be contributing to the country situation.
Also, it's about the educational system in Tunisia. We can return to the old one in 80s. Also about a real battle against corruption, against the 300 families in Tunisia, owned oil companies in Tunisia. It's about to use the empty lands inside the country. In Tunisia, we have 2 million hectares owned by the state are empty. You can use it. There is a lot of solutions in Tunisia, and we can do it.
Yeah, that's right. Always the Tunisian homemade products are way more expensive than imported products. And for the agriculture sector, I would say that the climate change is harming a lot the sector, making the production less, so the prices are higher, and that's why imported products are also cheaper than homemade products. Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry, I know that Tunisia is facing many climate problems, but I think that producing cereals and let's say using it in producing bread in Tunisia will be less expensive for sure than importing cereals from Argentina, for example.
Yes,
so
or from Ukraine or Russia.
Yeah.
Thank you for your contribution. I would like just to put it in the big frame, because I think that, for example, this is a very good example. Cereal production is one of the results of the International Monetary Fund policies, which is not a policy from the past, related to the past. I mean, it started in the 80s and it's continuing till now. So one of the conditions for loans was the reduction of subsidies, state subsidies for Tunisian products. So I do think that this central question of agency and structure is a very important one, and I think we should not just blame individuals for big structures having effects on their range of action. But I think, we came to the end. Thank you very much for your interaction, questions, remarks. Thank you, of course, first and foremost, for your contributions, and happy to have shared in this very interesting Globe Festival. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.